Welcome to the Better Man Podcast with Ivan and Sumed. This podcast is all about how to be an optimal, conscious male in today's society. Join Ivan and Sumed as they go deep into the rabbit hole of personal growth, mindset, social dynamics, and spirituality. Are you ready to be a better man?
Welcome back to the Better Man Podcast
with Ivan and Sumed. Today in this podcast, we are going to be talking about, tell him soon because I forgot.
We're going to be talking about breaking out of illusion or Maya or the separation of the world. Are you calling out what's right in front of you?
Very true. That's what we said. Living off of the facts, right? And now that I think about it, that's such an important thing to be talking about, especially in times where LeBron James says that he feels like Donald Trump meant this, or he feels that this is happening in America. This is not a fact. It's a feeling.
Feeling, right? I feel like as I even said that statement, I feel like, so I caught myself. But let me say it like this. A lot of us, we confuse our feelings with the truth and what is real. So just because you're feeling awkward does not mean you're being awkward, right? But this is something called emotional reasoning. We as people do this all the time. Like, we'll feel that a situation is like not working or something, and we'll create the distortion with the thought and actually make it the reality by thinking about it in that way. So actually the feeling is getting you to experience the emotion a lot more intensely. And so your logic is actually being corroded or influenced by your thoughts. Yeah.
By
your emotional thoughts.
Influence logic. And
yeah.
you come up. Actually, I first learned about that in Mel Robbins' book, The 5-Second Rule, right? Which is not about the one where you drop the fucking food, you fat ass. You fucking audience member. I know you probably eating a bag of chips as you're listening to us. Please stop. You're embarrassing. Better Man Podcast.
So yeah, I always thought that book was about that, bro. I was like, I don't know what this is about. I was like,
ooh, bro.
And I also thought she was related to Tony Robbins for some reason. I don't know why.
Bruh. Okay, I'll tell you what it's about. I'll give you the book review.
I know what it's about now, but yeah.
Well, in part. So basically, she was her marriage was struggling, her work was struggling, she was struggling emotionally. She was taking antidepressants, and now her daughters were starting to take antidepressants and follow in mom's footsteps, right? Her fucking husband had just gone into bankrupt, right? Because he tried to grow his business too fast, and then it started, imploding, and her life was going to shit. She was watching a video of a rocket launch. I don't know where, don't know what rocket launch. And she's like, oh, whenever I have trouble waking up and getting out of bed, I'm just going to count from 5 to 1 and blast off like a rocket ship. So the next day she does it. She goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. And she gets up, right? Her life better. Her whole fucking life changes for the positive. And then she cites research by Harvard Medical Studies that you have once you have like an inspiring idea, something you want to do, something that you're feeling, right? As soon as you have it, right, you have 5 seconds to act upon that idea, right? Like where it's one of those ideas where it's like, oh shit, the boss is right there. Let me go meet him. Oh shit, that's a fucking smoking ass girl. This is a like whatever opportunity is there, right? And you feel that
Right.
nervous energy, right? Cold approach.
Yeah.
Well, basically, he said go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? It has to be in reverse specifically, right? Because it's if you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you think about it too subconsciously. But if you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in reverse, you have to think about it consciously, right?
Yeah. We're used to counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So yeah,
There's something else
that
I want
makes
to say.
sense.
That's
Yeah,
before I
that's
take it off. There's just one more thing that I really want to say. So
mm-hmm.
the way we create memories, right? First, we have a life event, right? And then we call that experience, what you experience. Then we have meaning, that life event and experience we put a meaning to it, right? Which is just an internal representation. That internal representation creates what we know as state, right? What's the state that you're in? A state is just a fancy word for emotions, right? Those emotions lead to your actions and behaviors. What are your actions or behaviors of what you create in the world, right? That's your outcome. That's your result, right? That's all I wanted to say.
That's awesome. Yeah, it reminds me of like someone who said that, different scriptures have characters like the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran or, whatever sacred text anyone's reading, Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching, right? All of those characters that are explained in those texts are states of mind. And I was like, whoa, like that's a different way of looking at this, because I've never thought of like characters in movies playing a state of mind. So that idea really changed my reality of how I look at certain people can hold a state because of their character or their kind of personality in a way, because a state is just a body of beliefs, as you said, with experience, right? And so we could have our different body of beliefs created for us based on our experiences too, right? We could go into a certain event that is not really ideal to us, right? Let's say we go through some shocking event, right? And we can either choose the reality of numbing it with an ice. Think of it like ice, right? And below the ice is like just emotions, like water. So the top emotion is basically numbness or not wanting to face it. But below that ice is shock or confusion from the trauma, right? So we avoid feeling the shock and the confusion by being like ice cold, kind of numbing our feelings, not talking about it, suppressing it basically, right? And so that's the thing about certain emotions, is that there can be a display emotion which isn't the legit emotion. It's like me experiencing anger as my display emotion, but underneath it is fear.
And how do you think that comes across? How do you think that though when someone's interacting with the world like that, how are they perceived by the world around them?
They're perceived as the outside layer, and I think that this is where persona fatigue kicks in, right? Because you're not playing the character that you're supposed to be playing. You're kind of playing the outward emotion that you want to show the world, because it's safe, because it feels much more adaptable to you, like adaptable to your ego. Yeah.
Adaptable to your ego. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like ego preservation, you could say.
Yeah, I've been learning about like the way it's the way that we move energy. Like our personality is influenced by the way that we move energy through us, right? And there's like center outward. There's like people who send energy from the top down. People send from the bottom up. People who said through their personality. Obviously, everybody can do all different directions, right? but the way they naturally express their personality through their chakric, philosophical,
Chakra.
psychological,
Like that word.
their psychological nature will influence the way that you move energy through your body, through your aura, through your field, through your electromagnetic space. So basically there's like inward, outward people, right? Where they send energy from the center of their body to the out, right? And basically like that's not really connected, right? Like the top and the bottom are not necessarily connected, right?
Oh, you mean it's like disconnected? So like, let's say they have a lot of thoughts in the head. It's not embodied. So it's up here. Is that what you're trying to say?
So
Or it's more of like a expansive, like
so basically
feeling. Yeah.
The navel chakra is like the ego chakra,
Yeah.
right? And that's your world self, we can call that.
Yeah.
That one, they're sending energy to the up and to the down. So that means that the way that that's viewed in the world is they see themselves as their actions, right? So they like, you know, that's because that's their ego, their personality. They're like, I am my actions. So they're very doing kind of people, right? But what I'm saying is that they're not necessarily so engaged with the upper chakras or the lower chakras, right? But it is that the lower chakras and the upper are receiving that energy, so it goes into like a deficient, right? It's deficient because it's going like this. And it's not like all of them radiating together.
Got it. Yeah. It's kind of like some clogged channels, but then it's just going in. Like, let's say you only have your heart open, but the bottom half may be disconnected from
In a way, it's like I think the way I would describe it is, let's just say your other chakras are receiving energy from the navel chakra.
Okay, I see what you're saying
So
now.
they're not their own energy source. They're borrowing. So the one will become excessive, which is the navel, and the others will become deficient, right? So always remember that, like, there's above, so below. So all your deficiencies mean you have an excess somewhere else, right? And all your excess of your greatness leads to success. Of greatness leads to success.
Excess of greatness leads to success. Nice. So the way I think about this, what this concept that you said is that, like, let's say for instance, I'm a baseball player and I identify with doing that. Right. So I become my job. Anything outside of baseball, it triggers me because it doesn't go with my identity that I'm trying to portray. Would that be an example, like, of doing, like, your actions become your identity?
Yeah, so you're trying to get to a sense of being by doing.
Right.
Right? You're like it. Let me see. How would you describe that? Right? What I just said. I think you can do it like better than me. Where someone is trying to go into a state of being by doing. I got it. Watch, like somebody smoke. Let's just say like someone's like smoking weed. They're like, after I smoke this weed, I'm gonna feel better. After I eat this food, I'm gonna feel better. Right?
Yeah. So in my kind of understanding of it, I think of it like the flow. I'm gonna use the example of the flow state because kind of that's my expertise or specialty. So like we could be grinding our face off at work. We could use some wild pickup line, right? We could pull off some crazy magic trick, or we can just be ourselves fully, right? So the beingness sometimes spills over into the world through our deeds, through educating others, and of course our energy. But this spilling like is empowering others, right? But there's more to it than that. So it's like this feeling of, if you have a certain activity that you're doing and you're using it as an escape, it's still a doing, but it's still used as an escape, right? So let's say that you're an adventure sports athlete. Let me use an example. So let's say you're an adventure sports athlete and you identify yourself by doing that, but it feels forced. It's like you're showing up to your workout or your when you're at the gym or whatever, and you feel like this is forced. This is not really who I am, but maybe my dad was an adventure sports athlete, and so I'm being pushed to do this, right, in some way. And it feels kind of external and it feels egoic because it's like you have a different passion, but it's coming through in your adventure sports, acting it out, right? So when you're in the gym, you're distracted, but you're still, it's spilling over to your beingness now. So we can be in the flow state to be in the flow state, or we can be in the flow state to distract us from being. So a person can have an activity like, yeah, they're like watching a movie, so because they're distracted from being.
So they can
in
be
the real world.
They're like when people go through a breakup and they go party and drink a lot because they're trying to get distracted. Yeah, I mean, it was a bit confusing at first, but I think it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
And that, I think that's kind of where being in the truth, looking for what is the truth? What is the truth? What is the truth? Right. That's when you get
what is in the
to
present moment. What is in the present moment as well, right? Because a lot of times we also future predict or we mind read people, like, this person is going to react this way. I know it. I know for sure they're going to get mad or whatever, you know? And so we create that reality. We have expectations about certain people or certain events, right? And so we pre-plan and pre-predict, like, oh man, I know this person is going to yell at me or whatever. And it happens. It ends up happening. But if we have a different expectation or a different approach, it sometimes changes the experience altogether, right? So our expectations sometimes create our reality. But what you're saying is like, we just point it out, right? We just state the fact for what it is. Like, this is just a cup, right? I can't be like, oh, it's an orange cup, like it's yellow. I'll be like, oh, it's kind of orange. If you see it from this dimension, it's kind of maybe sort of orange, right? You can sort of tilt and bend the reality, but it doesn't take away from it just it being a yellow cup, right?
I think it would kind of be like, that's the best cup ever, right? And someone will be like, no, it's not. This is the best cup ever. No, this is the best cup ever, right? So then the question becomes there, what is the criteria that you're using? That's a very important word. What's the criteria that you're using? How are you measuring it? There's a ruler, there's some sort of metric. There's a metric. What are the metric? And whose metric? Who put that metric? Who used that metric before you? Where did you learn that metric? Right? What experience taught you to measure life that way, or cut that cup in that way? What's the best? Right?
My business coach has this saying. He's like, who sold you that reality?
Yeah.
Who sold you that reality?
So like, I've been going to work, right? You know, like in construction, building houses. And sometimes, like, if I don't get, like, you know, let's just say, like, I think this was yesterday, 2 days before that, I didn't have great sleep, right? I was feeling like sleepy as fuck. And then I was doing something, right? And I was like, man, this is the worst thing ever, right? And then my next voice was like, is this really the worst thing ever? Like, come on, is this really the worst thing ever? It's not. It's not, right? And then I asked myself, like,
Yeah.
basically, actually, now that I think about it, I put this in the book, which it says to ask yourself critical questions, right? Ask yourself
Mm.
like questions, but really good ones, right? Because and that basically, when you're in an emotional state, especially like I say, you're angry, you're sad, or whatever, your blood is flowing
Mm.
in in a different direction, right? It'll flow into your limbs and out of your brain, actually, because you're going into fight or flight mode. You're not going into logic mode, right? So
Mm.
when you ask yourself questions, you get yourself back into logic mode, and you're able to become a critical thinker.
Yeah. Yeah, and what happens in that fight or flight state is it scans the environment for threats, and so it hoards all our energy. Like it basically stores energy when we go into fight or flight. And so we feel drained or exhausted, but it's just energy saving mode, right? Energy saving mode, like a phone, right? So it's important for people to note that because then you can actually optimize that energy and actually use it for something when you do feel like, you know, you have a threatening thought in your mind, which gets you to act in that fight or flight way, and your body's responding in that way. It's not always the truth, it's just a distorted truth, right? And so, yeah, I had this technique in this new video that I posted actually about exhaustion. And one of the techniques, which might be very helpful for the topic that we're talking about, is when you're journaling to highlight the parts of your automatic speech as the parts you highlight are the parts that are stories. So the subjective reality. It's not the truth or the reality. So every time you highlight it, you're just pointing out to your mind like, hey, look, this is just your storyline and interpretation of this. This is not the reality of this. So when you get good at doing that, you can also start highlighting your mind, right? Because you're seeing on a piece of paper. It's a good practice to do that. Um, but then you can also sort of highlight your mind when you do that, and you're adding your own storyline to it. So I think that's a
Mm.
important technique for people to differentiate between
Mm-hmm.
the voice of their feelings and
Mm-hmm.
subjective reality and the objective reality.
Definitely. I think if someone's it's already an active journaler, they journal,
Yeah.
right? That'll be beneficial for them.
Yeah.
That's like a different technique that they could apply as they're journaling. Because I mean, I know the people that listen to our podcast, they're already people that are in the self development area. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if you're not journaling or if you never journaled, I consider you do it. Just put down, just put down, you know, just put it down. Just put it down on paper. Look at the words that dominate
Yeah. Actually,
your
just
thoughts.
yeah, I actually ordered a journal
Mm.
on Amazon a while back, and it was a really cool one, man. It was like a chakra journal, so it had little chakra stones in them, and I'm calling it my quantum journal. So I'm gonna write down all my manifestations in there, and just wait and see what happens, and only time will tell.
That's cool, man. You have a lot of journals.
Yeah. But specifically this one, the reason I got inspired by Charlie Rocket, and
Mm.
also the just the journal itself looks so cool. It looks so badass that it's like chakra stones. I feel like I'm gonna be moved to write in it a lot more, just because it's aesthetic and
I mean, whatever moves you,
and
you know. I mean, if you know how to push your own
yeah,
buttons, learn just push your
totally.
own buttons the way that you know they get active. Yeah.
Yeah, almost think about it like if I were to do it in like a movie of my life, right? It's TPM going into my book, but if I was like, I was playing the character of my movie, like how would they have done it, right? And so I kind of go off of that mentality of like, how can I push my buttons in this way, and how would my character, respond to this? So
Hmm.
that's how I kind of got to that decision of ordering this book, journal. Well, yeah.
Something that came to my mind. I do this. I've applied this before. There's this three people dynamic, right? When something's going on, when we're writing our story. right? And every story, right? I mean, as philosophers before our time have pointed out, it's the hero's journey that we're following. We're in our own story, right? And it's got the rising action, right, which is when the hero's down, right? And there's a villain. So there's a villain, there's a hero, and there's a victim. Hero, villain, victim. Hero, villain, victim.
That's interesting how there's three. And you're getting this from where? From Joseph Campbell stuff?
Oh no, I'm not too sure who Joseph Campbell is.
He's the guy that wrote the hero's journey, so he's.
Oh, I mean, I kind of a bit pieced it together because that's something that we learned in English class, right? And they show you the map of like the hero's journey.
Yeah. The refusal of the call.
It was Jordan Peterson who mentioned that our life was like the hero's journey, where I heard it.
Right.
And
yeah, it's very true.
And when we look at the media, all media, stories, movies, books and movies primarily, right? Even and newspapers, you could say, articles.
I feel like hero's journey starts whenever there's about to be a lit, story happening, unfolding, or an adventure that's about to start. Like when I was about to go, it starts with a problem, bro. Like I remember when I was buying the tickets to Vegas. You remember that? That was like a great example where I was like refusal of the call, and then meeting with the mentors. I guess RSD Tyler, whoever was the mentor there, right? And then walking back to India with this elixir of life, like having my world being shifted by going on that journey.
That shit was epic, bro. I mean.
Yeah.
I think I spent over $1,000 in that whole trip, but I mean, it was
worth it, man. I mean,
I'm a fucking different person too. Just like all the seeing for me, I think it was the act of like just going straight for it, right?
Yeah, immersion. Yeah,
and all the other people that were there, they were doing it too, right? Wild nights, man. Wild nights.
Yeah. Straight up. But yeah, what the hero's journey we were talking about, and it just reminded me of your face is kind of frozen, like
in a funny way.
In this really funny face for me. All right. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'm reminded of like every single movie. Now I know you're doing it. Every single movie, right, has that hero's journey, and it's always the character coming back to himself or herself. Like, notice that. Like, it's so bizarre, like, and it's always symbolic as well. Like, I feel like, this is my just own interpretation, but Harry Potter is like this kid who never really belonged in the world, didn't know he was a wizard, discovered he was a wizard, fought his own internal darkness, right, Voldemort, whatever, his own shadow, and came out of the other side, like, and just came back to himself and who he was, right? So any storyline kind of goes with that. It's like they lose themselves some way, they go on this journey, but then they always come back to themselves in the end.
Everything always cycles.
It's like a spiral.
Everything always cycles. Yeah. Everything moves in a spiral. Yeah. The DNA moves in a spiral. The way the galaxy travels through the world is in a spiral. Right. What are the other spirals that are in
upward spiral gang?
Music travels. Music travels in a spiral. The notes.
I mean,
the notes. If you follow the notes.
If you think of the golden ratio is also a spiral, right? And that's found in nature as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. It's really powerful. And the thing about it is, like, we think that growth is linear, but it's actually a spiral as well, right? It's like we get to this level of the spiral. We're faced with the similar lesson or the similar problem in level 2, let's say, from level 1. And we sometimes go to level 5 and we're like, oh man, I'm back to square one again, or I'm back to level 1. It's not true. You're just at level 5 and everything's been refreshed. So you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience actually. But we speak to ourselves at times as if it's like, oh, I've gone 5 steps back, I've sabotaged some. It's not really a sabotage. It's just like you're at a different level now.
I think
So
it's like whenever you
Yeah.
reach the comfort, actually, I would say the circle isn't completed until you reach a level of comfort, right?
Yeah, and
Because then that's
that's
where it allows the
pushing you
problem
to.
to come in. It allows the problem to come in.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It's
I
like
like that.
when you become settled, right? It's like that feeling of like stagnant. Then it's like you can either control your environment around you and like do things, or you can let it control you. Right? It's like you could let's use the example of you're about to hand a book into the library, right? And let's say you get stuck in traffic. That's not your fault. That's circumstances' fault, right? You could have left a bit early, sure, right? But now, like, if you're like, oh, you went a week later and you made sure you handed in that book, that would have been you taking control of the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of leaving it for last minute. So that's a active control, where the other one is a passive control from the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The universe is controlling the situation for you
Mm-hmm.
in a certain way.
Yeah.
So the Stoics have this concept of like you choosing suffering, right? Instead of having suffering done to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I recently went through this with one of my clients who's in the academy, actually. Shout out to Masato. And basically, we were talking about his different affirmations, which we're creating to really get into the subconscious. And he was explaining that in Japanese culture, he was using his culture for him, not against him. So he was saying that Japanese culture has a specific culture that's all about suffering, and like you got to go through the struggle and the hardship and all that stuff, right? And he was like, one of the quotes is suffer the insufferable and endure the endurable, right? And we were talking for a while, right? And we got to the end of the affirmation as like, bro, what would be one affirmation that just like would set it off for you, would just be like the icing on the cake, right? That would just like be like perfect to end it. And he was like, I think I would choose I am passion. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's look up the etymology of the word passion, right? Just as a fun thing. I like to do that at times. And we look it up, and the word passion means suffering. Like it comes from the root word suffering. And we were like, whoa, bro, like this is such a synchronicity. Like what is happening? Like this is a perfect word to like describe that power that he was feeling. And it was quite a breakthrough moment. So yeah, I wanted to share that.
That's fucking awesome. I think that's a good place that we get close off.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just want to say, everybody,
Sounds good.
Go out there and do something about your suffering. Do something about your suffering, and just take care of yourself and the people around you. I have a book out, as you might know. A lot of people get it. Typically, only great people get it. Only people who are like, okay, like I'm want to know more. Typically, it's those people. They get the book. It's called Command Respect. It's in my website, ivanalejandroacosta.com.
Awesome, man. Yes, so I have two assignments, saying it like in school. I have 2 assignments for you guys. So the first one is I got a webinar coming out for my book launch. I don't want to call it a webinar. It's just an online event, a book launch. And basically, in that event, I'm going to be interviewed by someone. Haven't chosen that person yet, but basically they're going to be asking me lots of questions about the book that's coming out on Amazon on October 11th. So this will be on October 10th. So if you can attend, it's an Indian Standard Time, 8 p.m. So yeah, if you are interested in that event, you can shoot me a message on Instagram, FLOZONEACADEMY. And also, I have a song coming out with an artist from Mississippi.
Oh, fuck. 1 second. Yo, bro, my bad. I put my phone on airplane mode.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're just frozen for a second, so I was just wondering. Yeah, so basically I was saying this guy, Tilo the Great, right? He makes like a lot of positive music. He's from Mississippi and he's connected to the streets as well. So don't fuck with me. And we're creating a song together. It's called Diamond Mind. It's to, kind of, it's inspired by Arash, obviously, in his program. But yeah, the song is really fire. It's really catchy. He did the hook to it. And yeah, we're collaborating on many songs together. So yeah, those are going to come out as well as we kind of finalize everything. But yeah, excited for those two announcements.
That's great, man. That's good news.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty, everybody.
All right.
Peace out. Peace and love.
Much love. May the flow be with you. Gang, gang.
Good one, son.
If you would like to contact Sumed for peak performance coaching, go to @FlowZone Academy on Instagram. That's FLOZONE Academy. If you would like to connect to your higher self, contact Ivan at odd.resilience. That's ODD.resilience. Also, make sure you follow the Better Man podcast on Instagram. See you next time.